Welcome to SF Nonprofit Spotlight, brought to you by SF Commons. I'm Keli Dailey. Keeping San Francisco affordable for people of modest means, it sounds like a hard task in America's most expensive city, but there is a group working to make living in San Francisco inexpensive. They're called the San Francisco Community Land Trust, and they buy small apartment buildings and help tenants form housing cooperatives so that they share in ownership of those buildings. Joining us today to talk about the Community Land Trust is the organization's board president, Bruce Wolfe. Bruce, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Bruce, so to start, the Community Land Trust is part of a housing rights movement, and it's been called a way to promote access to housing and to make it more inclusive. How does the San Francisco Community Land Trust work?
Well, we are a community-based organization, which makes all our properties community-owned. And the way it basically works is we'll either get a call from somebody who's a tenant in a building, or we'll get an offer through the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is a new law here in the city, or our real estate broker will find something on the listing, and we will have a meeting. We will determine if that is an appropriate building for our kind of operation, which most of the time it is. And then we'll meet with the tenants. We do tenant engagement, which is part of our requirement. And if everybody's in agreement, then we'll make an offer on the building. And it'll be like any other real estate purchase with a standard seller for acquisition. And that's about it.
Yeah, let's talk about the people that you've just mentioned, the tenants currently housed through your land trust. How many are they, and just who are these people?
So that we have about 107 units in 13 buildings with over 200 people population. And of that, three-quarters, we have about three-quarters diversity. So it's quite a diverse population. We have about 20% are seniors and about 15% are children. So we have any number of families, single people, elders.
If I'm understanding this model correctly, they're tenant owners through this housing cooperative model. It's a pretty old one, but community land trusts vary in structure, but your specific one has really strived to get people into co-ops. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our primary mission is to create self-management models. And this helps move people from the typical landlord-tenant relationship into a more self-management, self-facilitating type of model. And it's not quite the big leap into home ownership, but gives an opportunity for people to do it together, learn it together, develop more experiences about it, and still have a more comfortable time without having to take on the full load of home ownership, which can be kind of daunting. So that's what we try to form. Yeah.
And can you perhaps give us an example, maybe an anecdote of a building that you have acquired or had acquired and how that impacted your tenants?
Sure. So our very first building actually is a great example. It's at 53 Columbus Street, across from the old Transamerica building. And that actually was on City College property. And when City College was creating their new campus in Chinatown, they kind of split up some of that property, and we, along with the tenants who wanted to stay there, helped us purchase that property from City College. Most of those people that lived there were first generation Chinese Americans, were Chinese immigrants that became Americans. Many of them are still there. and are well into their very senior years. But they, grew their families there. And we created a limited equity housing cooperative in that building. Everybody owns, as they say, a piece of the rock. Everybody has a share, and they operate collectively.
And you have buildings across the city. I think the term is scatter sites. And but you're also membership driven. So can you maybe talk a little bit about what that means? And is that a way for us fellow residents of San Francisco to help out and be an ally to some people of more modest means?
Absolutely. So one of the unique aspects of the community land trust is that we're community owned. And that means that we have all kinds of people from different types of groups that are part of the makeup of the organization. So we have general members, which are folks like you and me, just general members of the public. You could be an organization. There's another group called lessees, and the lessees are the people that live there, that are living on our properties. And they also get a vote. And each of them, through their vote, elect a number of people onto the board of directors. And we have a third group called public members, or public representatives, actually, which are chosen by the general members and the lessee members that may have expertise in areas that the rest of the board doesn't. And so they're really there to help kind of round out just a lot of community kind of oversight that is not so focused in on like a perpetual type of board.
And you mentioned the different skills that people on the various membership levels bring. You, as a member of the board, your background is in social work. And maybe can you talk about what this community land trust model means to you, or what impact you've seen?
I was when I went back to school after a work injury. I went to San Francisco State and was in the social work program there. And we were having a terrible problem with housing. This is during the first dot-com boom. So students were having it was like it is now, it was very expensive. And so I worked with a number of students, and we had actually created co-ops in the city for students from San Francisco State. And it's part of a national student co-op movement. This whole organization around it. So I got actually tapped by the founders of the Community Land Trust because of my experience with co-ops, to come on board. But I'm also a disability advocate. And one of the things that I found was really not available here in the city, it was really hard for people with disabilities, is finding housing that's not just adaptable, but that is supportive for them, but allows them the complete freedom without being part of some, government program. And co-housing is a model for such a thing that creates kind of intergenerational and generational legacy for housing that helps people through their lives. And that we don't have that model here in the city. And it's something that we're still working on in the Land Trust.
You had sent me before this interview a link to a documentary called Arc of Justice, and it features the late Congressman John Lewis talking about how community land trusts can address racist housing policies, displacement, evictions, homelessness. Can you maybe explain and talk about the role of community-owned land in addressing these issues?
Well, I spoke a little bit before about perpetual boards. Generally, you have like a steering committee or some sort of board that basically runs the show. There is no membership, so to speak. And so it depends upon who's on those boards that control the mission or the vision or the movement of the organization. in a community-based organization, everybody does it together. So there's an annual meeting. Maybe there's more than one membership, all full membership meeting throughout the year, where we'll talk about issues, or people can say, I think we need more elder housing, senior housing. So let's focus on that. Or we may want more LGBT type of inclusion in housing for maybe folks that are afflicted with HIV or AIDS, things like that, which we actually have a property that actually is focused specifically on that. So there you have the ability to have the community help make decisions about where the organization is coming and going. And with a tripartite board that's made up of representatives from each of the groups, you have that continuum from the diversity of the membership to the decision-making body. So everybody knows that their interests will be represented.
Bruce, I just want to make sure everyone understands a community land trust is not giving away housing. You're offering long-term housing at a price residents were paying at previous apartments. How do people find out about vacant units through your type of housing?
That's right. So the San Francisco Community Land Trust and all community land trusts provide affordable housing in perpetuity, which means that we hold it forever. And when people come into the community land trust as a resident, they have a permanent home. It's a forever home, we like to call it. People find out about us either through word of mouth, through our other residents that go out and tell people what, this fantastic thing that they fell upon, or through the city's lottery system. We do get, in some of our properties are city funded, and the city is actually at the forefront of providing lots of funding for acquiring properties to really help boost what we call preservation housing. And through that, we acquire these buildings and provide a lifetime lease if it's going to be a rental, or we provide what's called a master lease or a ground lease to the cooperative. And these run 99 years.
And seeing as that we're a city of renters, majority renters, and the moratorium on evictions are going to end soon, and renters will not be absolved of paying rent because of economic hardships brought on by COVID-19. It will all come due. And I'm just wondering, as the only community land trust in our city, what type of lessons or strategies or some of the ideas that come out of this model that will help us in the years to come?
Well, I think one of the main things is that we do is once we acquire a property, we really do our best not to change the rents. So it's a seamless transition for most people. And that is really important because especially in a crisis time now where people have lost their jobs, they're furloughed or what have you, if we are able to acquire property now, not changing their finances is going to be essential. So that goes even just for at any time for a low to moderate income person here in the city. We mostly focus on what's called the area median income is kind of a scale. So we focus on the 30 to 80% of area median income. And so these are folks that are working people, or they're just very low income folks. And so, the key thing about this concept of preservation housing is that we don't construct buildings. We take buildings that have existing tenants in them and we acquire those buildings. And so it's kind of like a switch of their landlord. but their new landlord is really helping them to become self-managed. And so that they can make more decisions about what's happening in the building, what needs to be, things that need to be fixed, beautifying the property in that kind of way. And they can make more or less their decisions about where they're living on their own, which they couldn't do. So the land trust provides a kind of the credit to be able to buy the building, quote unquote, for them, and they get to live in it.
That's a very empowering social mission. Bruce Wolf, thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations on all the work that the San Francisco Community Land Trust has done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Empowering tenants of single-room occupancy hotels. That's the mission of our guests in the nonprofit known as City SRO Collaborative. They've been in operation since 2001, and they are based in the Tenderloin. It's one of San Francisco's most diverse and most neglected neighborhoods. And they help tenants in the Tenderloin and South of Market neighborhoods thrive. And I am so excited to have with me today CCSRO's Director for Community Organizing, Pratibha Takei, and Program Manager, Dina Mendoza. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Pratibha, I'd like to start with you first and get an understanding of what SROs are and why it's important to grow leadership among the people who live in them.
So Central City SRO Collaborative, as you said, was formed in 2001, but it is a program of Tenderloin Housing Clinic. I just wanted to make sure that that's clear there. We work with SRO residents in Tenderloin and South of Market, and Single-Room Occupancy Hotel was built in soon after the earthquake, where most of the workers who came to rebuild San Francisco in early 1900s. So for them to basically, rebuild San Francisco, and then they came back. So it is basically a room. Sometimes, and they would have shared bathrooms, and they would just go out in the neighborhood to eat and drink, or to hang out with friends. And then they would when they have to come and sleep, they just come in and sleep. So it was predominantly used as a workforce, I would say labor workforce, and service industry folks who used to live in single-room occupancy hotels. So that's what a single-room occupancy is. Some of the single-room occupancy hotel rooms have attached bathrooms, but many of them don't. So, and there are almost, I would say, about anywhere from 400 to 500 total single-room occupancy hotel buildings in San Francisco. And we are one of the few cities that still has it. And it's still preserved as a single-room occupancy hotel and not like a tourist or anything else.
There are so many things that you do address.
Yeah.
And Dina, CCSRO has been in the news lately about muni transit service cuts. As Pratibha was saying, also safety, street safety. What are some of the issues that you're hearing now during the pandemic from the people you serve, and what is offering them hope?
Yeah, Kelly, thank you. Great question. In working with the community, we're hearing different things. We're hearing that the community has lost income. Many of the people that we work with oftentimes are monolingual Spanish-speaking individuals, some who are undocumented. And during the pandemic, they found that many have either been temporarily laid off or permanently laid off. And if they're temporarily laid off, unfortunately, their employers do not know when they can come back to work. And so many for them right now is they're in survival mode, trying to find how they can get food, basic necessities. The hope for them right now is strengthen community. A lot of the community members that we talk to have these different relationships with each other, really close relationships. I mean, in our program, we were very oftentimes used to people just coming to our offices to talk amongst each other. It was a welcoming space for everyone. And that's been present throughout the entire program of CCSRO. And so now as a community, even though we're in shelter in place, many of them still continue to talk to each other through Zoom, phone calls, and through that, they are really able to support one another throughout the pandemic. Many find support within each other to talk about these different things, what they're going through. And then we try to help them as well. Any community voice that comes about, we try to find the resources to assist them.
That's very hopeful in these times, how we've relied on each other. And I imagine, Pratima, the pandemic has also affected how the organization operates. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just want to, if I can go back. What I do is I oversee the community organizing department of Tenderloin Housing Clinic, and CCSRO is one of the programs. And we have other two programs, that is COP, Code Enforcement Outreach Program, and also Voz Latina, which Dina oversees both Voz Latina and CCSRO and Code Enforcement Outreach Program. The other two programs are basically working with residents in private apartments, and the program CCSRO is strictly with Single-Room Occupancy Hotel. Just wanted to clarify that. So when Dina is speaking, she's definitely using her experience working with monolingual Spanish speakers or different folks who are in different basically housing situations. The way what we had done during this pandemic time, it has been a little difficult, challenging to figure out what is the best strategy, how we can reach people, how we can keep an open office. As you know, we are not able to serve as we used to. So we have like a separate space where we basically encourage our clients or tenants or residents to call in first, so that we can do a lot of the pre-triage work beforehand, so that when they come in to drop a document, or it's a very low impact one-on-one conversation. But so we now has, because of the surge and because of other circumstances, we have now, for the last couple of weeks, we have now pivoted to working, most of us working from home. So that has reduced a lot of our outreach. We do have, we used to before do outreach within the buildings. We would go out to different buildings and do outreach with the tenants to let them know what are the rights or what is going on in the neighborhood. But right now we cannot do that. So it's predominantly pivoted to Instagram or Twitter feed or Facebook or phone calls that we make to the residents. And so that's the only way we can do this. So, yeah.
The point was that the advocacy programs that are underneath CCSRO, there's a variety of them, and you are overseeing one that's very interesting, the Voz Latina Resource Center. And I say that because the Latinx community is one of the fastest growing in the Tenderloin from what I've learned. And I'm wondering if you took a call before our interview. I'm wondering if you could share some of the services or anecdotes about people you're helping right now.
Yeah, of course. And you made a great point. Because the community was growing so quickly, that's how the Voz Latina came to be. I was mentioning that I was on a call just a while ago that there was a tenant who qualified for rental assistance, and so she had called me to see if I could help her submit some final documentation so that she could get that final approval for that rental assistance application. And so while our main focus is tenant counseling, we focus on eviction prevention. We understand that the community has multiple needs, and it oftentimes is very difficult for them to manage those different items, such as technology issues that they may have, language barrier issues. And we really want to eliminate those barriers whenever we can, so that we can make sure that our community can receive the services when needed. For example, right now we're in the middle of the pandemic, and so we really want to work with the community to make sure that they have access to any financial assistance, because oftentimes it is very difficult for undocumented residents to have access to any kind of financial assistance. And so we've been helping tenants in both programs with eviction prevention, helping them answer moratorium letters, helping them file declaration letters to the landlords, saying that yes, they understand that they cannot pay their rent, and that is because of the pandemic. As a result of the pandemic, they've either been temporarily laid off, permanently laid off, seeing some increase in costs at this time due to medical expenses, childcare expenses. We try to be the liaisons with the landlords. And besides that, we try to offer also food to the community. We oftentimes see that our community faces food insecurity issues, and we have 2 pantries that operate out of our offices on Mondays and on Wednesdays to also offer that extra support to community, because I just mentioned many have lost their jobs and they're fighting for survival right now to make ends meet.
And that extra support, it makes me think, what can we as your neighbors, as the neighbors of the people that you serve, what can we do? Dina, maybe you can speak to this, and also Pratibha, what would you like from us?
This is maybe a small plug-in. At this time, one of our community organizers is organizing a holiday gift card drive, actually, because as I just mentioned, many families are out of work. It's a little bit harder for them this year to buy items for their kids. And so our community organizer that's working on this project, she is organizing a holiday gift card drive with other nonprofits in the neighborhood so that families can use that money to buy items at Target. And I can share the link, the flyer. We're still actively receiving donations to make that possible for the community.
Would it be on your website for CCSRO?
We will add it to the website.
And Pratibha, same question to you. What do you need from your community here?
I would say that if folks are hearing that their fellow tenants and other folks are in need of, like, in terms of tenants' rights, or in terms of something that's going on in their habitability situation, or they should reach out to us. They can reach out to us. If they're walking by our office, they can definitely see there's a phone number attached to it. They could call, or they could go to our website and see how they can reach to individual staff. That's something is what I would say for CCSRO. And definitely, Dina already made the plug-in. We generally, it's kind of unfortunate because we usually, December is the month when we do a lot of the holiday gift giveaway to families and to children in the neighborhood. And this time we'll have to do it differently. And this time we have to figure out how we're going to make that happen. So.
Pratibha Tekay and Dina Mendoza, thank you so much for your contributions through Central City SRO Collaborative, and thanks for being here today.